Go Hunt Life show hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord to epically reinvent themselves in order to pursue a life full of purpose and passion. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, and the crew there are rock stars when it comes to delivering top quality printing at a cheap price. If you've met me in the last 3 years and I handed you a business card, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. They're my online digital printing company for everything. They do banners, company letterhead, a ton of direct mail pieces, funky decals, even menus for restaurants, over 30 categories of printing products, and yes, business cards. And they do it fast and they do it cheap. Jeff has streamlined every little aspect of the business to provide the perfect user experience, delivering the best product in the industry. I have personally been to the offices and I have seen it firsthand. But see for yourself. Go to printdirtcheap.com and use promo code GoHuntLife and get $10 off of your order. Or if you want to get a sample of their work, click on Sample Pack and they'll mail you one out for free. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. This episode is also sponsored by one of my companies, Click Placement. We are a pay-per-click marketing agency specializing in PPC badassery. We have literally helped hundreds of companies over the last decade drive engagement through paid search advertising using Google AdWords and Bing Ads, LinkedIn, and of course, Facebook. We work with startups, established businesses, and nonprofits to customize campaigns to drive sales or leads, build brand awareness, sell products, or generate mobile app downloads. Hit us up at clickplacement.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to start a conversation.
When we really looked at it, it felt like someone else's life, maybe? I don't know. We did. There was nothing we could have asked for that we didn't have or weren't able to earn for ourselves, I guess. It just didn't feel like our authentic life. It felt like what we were supposed to do, but not what we wanted to do.
That is Cree Koria, and that is only part of the story. 2 years ago, her and her family were living the normal life in the suburbs of Atlanta. Cree and her husband were both working, 2 boys in school, house full of stuff, just a jam-packed, normal schedule. They had always talked about leaving the so-called American dream and moving to Mexico, but every time they started to move forward with that path, life got in the way. Until one day, Cree had a headache. And not just any kind of headache, one that was excruciating, and it lasted for a month. And on a visit to urgent care clinic, she sat up from the examination table and said, "I can't see." Everything had gone black. She was blind. And at that moment, life got real. A lot's transpired in their lives since then, and you'll find out soon enough in this conversation that I talked to Cree while her and her family were living in Ajijic, Mexico, living their authentic life. And hey, stick around for a quick segment at the end called Pulling the Ripcord. I caught up with Farah and Bob Grimm that are right at that moment of pulling the ripcord on their corporate world lives in Portland and headed to Scandinavia. And while they've been preparing for their launch, they came up with a genius mindset to save money. You don't want to miss it. My conversation with Cree Koria starts right now. Cree, thank you for jumping on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me.
What city are you in? And if you were to walk outside the front door, what's it like?
Right now, we are in Ajijic, in the state of Jalisco, Mexico. It is a small town on Lake Chapala. And if I walk out my front door, I have the most beautiful view of the biggest lake in Mexico. It's really gorgeous here.
Okay. How old are you? Are you married and do you have kids?
I am 45. I am married and we have 2 boys that are 12 and 5.
12 and 5. And your husband's name?
Alpesh.
All right. So what are the primary ways, you're living in Mexico, but you're from the United States. What are the primary ways that you and Alpesh earn a living?
Well, for the initial period of a year, we've been traveling, and we're using the proceeds from our former life to fund that. Alpesh also does some day trading to supplement, which is nice. being that he can do it from anywhere. So that's how we've planned to do it so far. Once we settle down, I would imagine both of us have interest in starting a business somewhere.
Okay, so your former life, you've already referenced it. Take me back to 2015 into your former life and describe like what was going on and where were you living?
In 2015, we lived in Decatur, Georgia, part of the Atlanta metropolitan area. We were a typical family of four, working, schooling, and just trying to keep up with everybody going different directions every day, really.
What were you both doing?
Alpesh did project management and staffing. I sold real estate. And then the boys, of course, were in school.
Okay. What did you guys own?
Oh, the 2 houses, 2 cars, 2 dogs.
Two houses?
Pretty much. Yeah, we had a rental home. We were fortunate that we kept our previous home as a rental when we bought our new home. So, so there were a lot of balls in the air for us.
And you're selling real estate. That is not a 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. That is all the time, weekends, evenings.
Exactly. I used to joke that I had the exact opposite schedule of my husband because, people want to look at real estate at night and on the weekends. So it really did have the potential to keep us very busy and on opposite schedules. So not a lot of family time. Sometimes.
What were the kids doing? They were in school, sports, things outside of school?
Yeah, they're not, as we're living in the South, and a lot of kids there are very heavily invested in sports. Our kids not as much, but they definitely had their extracurricular activities and things that kept us constantly on the go.
I mean, back then, if somebody were to have asked you, like, are you happy? I mean, what would the answer have been?
Yeah, we had everything we could have wanted. We felt very fortunate and very, aware that there were less fortunate than us. But when we really looked at it, it felt like someone else's life, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. There was nothing we could have asked for that we didn't have or weren't able to earn for ourselves, I guess. It just didn't feel like our authentic life.
Why did it not?
Oh, that's a good question. It just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer to that. It just didn't feel like our life. It felt like what we were supposed to do, but not what we wanted to do.
That is a pretty direct statement. When you guys used to like daydream or talk or whatever about doing something different, what came up or did it not come up?
No, it came up all the time. Anytime we went on a vacation, we would immediately start talking about, like, of course, a vacation is fun, right? And you want to continue that all the time. But
sure.
we were always interested in what life would be like in a different place. So, yeah.
So what was the tipping point on you actually making the decision to make a drastic, massive change in your lives?
Well, we had started talking about it way back in probably 2009, early 2010.
Wow.
But and we had attempted it. I guess it was kind of a half-hearted attempt, but the market, as you know, the country was in a recession and we couldn't sell the property. Everything was kind of like a roadblock. So we kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. And eventually we just sort of continued on our way in the States.
What were you going to do back in 2010? And a lot of the people that I talked to on this show, their ripcord, the recession in 2009 and 2010, that impacted their decision. What was the main roadblock? Wait, our houses are now devalued compared to what they were in 2008. We can't afford to sell them and really do what we want to do. Was that the main barrier?
Yeah, that for us was the main barrier. It didn't allow us to qualify for residency. We really had to be in a position to qualify, first of all, for residency, which is, that just your first step in moving to any foreign country. And without selling our house, we couldn't do that. So it quickly became obvious that it just wasn't the right time for us. But the thought never went away.
Back then, was it Mexico?
It was Merida.
Merida, Mexico. Okay. What changed in 2015?
In 2015, I had a health scare. I had 2 episodes of optic neuritis, and that kind of set us back on our heels, and we took a real long, hard look at what we were doing and how, this just kind of had to really look at our lives and take stock.
What is optic neuritis, and what are the signs? What are the symptoms? Like, what happened?
Yeah, optic neuritis, I had about a month-long headache, and it progressively got worse and worse. Optic neuritis is inflammation of the optic nerve that results in loss of vision. And so as the headache progressed and I sought medical help, but that's when we got the diagnosis. We didn't know what it was leading up to. It was just a headache with eye pain.
A headache with eye pain. Okay. And did you lose your vision?
I did. I finally sought some treatment because the pain was unrelenting. And in the middle of treatment in urgent care, I sort of sat up from the examination table, and I lost my vision. I was totally blind, like in the dark blind. And so that moved quickly into one hospitalization, which then led to another hospitalization. And eventually I got most of my vision back in my left eye. My right eye is still not functioning for the most part.
So all of a sudden, a headache, a bad headache, turns into you sitting up on an examination table and you not being able to see just in a blink, like just snap of the fingers and that's it.
Yeah, it literally, I was laying down. They had given me some, I don't remember the name of it, but it was wonderful. It made the pain go away finally. But I was laying there with my eyes closed and my arms sort of draped over my face, and they were doing the checkout, catching up with the bill and whatever. And I sat up to leave, and I couldn't see. I opened my eyes and there was nothing. It was a scary moment.
What did you think? Like, how do you handle that situation?
Oddly enough, in that moment, I was very calm. I told my husband, it was almost unbelievable to me that I couldn't see. And processing that, I told Alpesh, go get the doctor. I can't see. And he said, what do you mean you can't see? And I said, I can't see anything. It's black. So he went and got the doctor, who called an ambulance, and they thought I was having a stroke. But I didn't have any other symptoms of a stroke. But went to the hospital, and they went from there with tons of testing. My vision actually came back in my left eye pretty quickly. So as I was in the emergency room at the next hospital, that eye started to come back.
Okay. So did the drugs influence this at all? You said they had given you a bunch of great painkillers, and so the pain went away, but
yeah.
The vision went away. That's not what you want.
Yeah, they don't know. They didn't ever seem to make a correlation between the medicine, and the only medicine I was given was a pain reliever and an anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
And they didn't seem to draw a conclusion, although the timing seems very odd.
Yeah. What transpired then over the next couple of months? You said that your vision in your left eye came back within an hour or so. The next emergency room you were in, it started to come back, which obviously I would assume calmed you down a little bit. What transpired over the next few months?
I had a recurrence of the pain, and optic neuritis pain specifically is pain behind the eyes and movements of the eyes, as well as sensitivity to light. So that came back pretty quickly after my first ER visit and subsequent round of steroids. That's how they try to bring the vision back, is with a high dose of intravenous steroids. So then we did a second round of the steroids in the hospital for, I think I was there for 5 or 6 days.
Okay.
And then it was just testing and specialists and doctors, MRIs and CAT scans and blood work and vision tests, just countless tests. And I was pretty much bedridden. I mean, my only exertion of the day was to go to a doctor's appointment, and it was back to bed. I was really pretty incapacitated at the time.
Because of the pain, because of you couldn't see, what kept you in bed?
I didn't have any energy. I was just completely, taking a shower was exhausting. It's almost incomprehensible how tired a shower would make me. And just thinking about taking the shower was exhausting. So, they did all this testing. I didn't have, did I mention that optic neuritis is a leading symptom usually for MS, for multiple sclerosis? So that's immediately where a doctor goes. They immediately start to think, early to mid 40s, optic neuritis, MS. And the spinal tap and the MRI, nothing showed the lesions that they're looking for to confirm a diagnosis. So I really was a mystery. Nobody knew. Nobody still knows. It's just been a lot of back and forth. They're kind of waiting for another shoe to drop, is what it seems like. They're waiting for the next symptom.
Okay. So MS, multiple sclerosis, we all know the term, but what does that physically mean? Like what would be the next shoe to drop if that were actually the case?
It can present in a multitude of ways. But what they're looking for from a doctor's perspective is lesions on your brain or your spinal column. And because the symptoms a lot of them are general and not specific to MS, solely. So
okay. So you progressed through that year of 2015, and when did you start considering it is now? Our thoughts back in 2009 and 2010. Now life just got real. Let's make some big decisions. How did that progress?
Pretty much exactly like you said. When I was finally up and out of bed and functioning more, we said, well, the whole inability to find a diagnosis was driving me crazy. And the concept of waiting for the other shoe to drop was maddening to me. I couldn't get my head around it. What then? What if? I don't know. Nobody knew how this was going to play out. And that not knowing and the potential for, I don't know, for it to be MS or something that progressed and to lose my ability to do what I wanted with my life really made it feel like it was now or maybe never, which is true for anyone, right? I mean, that is really true for anybody, but it was, somebody really shined a light on that fact for me. And I felt like we had to really look at doing what we wanted with our lives.
So you started liquidating, and in a blog post that Alpesh put up recently titled "The Great Unburdening," what were the steps that you went through to unburden your lives?
Well, we went back and forth about, do we get rid of everything? Do we keep it? Do we rent the houses? And ultimately for us, it was about cutting all the ties and not having any, financial responsibilities or obligations back home, so we could really focus on moving forward and not have to worry about, things we've had happen at a rental house, like a hot water heater breaking or, the endless list of things that can go wrong. We didn't want to manage any of that. That's kind of, managing stuff was what we were so not interested in.
You put one house on the market to see what happened. Did you just put them both on? Let's get rolling. Let's get out of here. How did that process work? And then they were obviously, or at least your primary home was full of your stuff. How did you let go of all that and get rid of it?
Well, the timing was tricky. because we had, once you apply for your visa and are approved, you have 6 months to enter Mexico. So once we knew that Mexico would have us, we had to plan how to get rid of everything in 6 months and get there. So once they told us we could come, that was when we really had to tackle the how and the when and timing of closings and school and all that good stuff. But I think we did it pretty well. The houses went under contract. We listed them one at a time. They went under contract before we got the first one listed. The second one, the first showing showed up with a contract. So it was all moving very quickly. There were no roadblocks like the first time.
Wow. Which is certainly telling you this is correct, this is correct, this is correct. Keep going.
Yeah, it really was. It was like every time we approached a potential roadblock, somebody was, it was gone. And that really felt like this is how it's supposed to be. It's just leading us perfectly to where we're going next. So yeah, it was great.
And this was in late 2015, or are we in 2016 yet?
We are 2016. I think February or March is when we listed the first house. So we got our visas in February. We started working on getting the houses listed and just the plan. And then the plan was really implemented probably in 4 months from selling the first house to pulling out of the driveway of the second one.
So what were your friends and family telling you during this process? Are you guys sure this is all your stuff? This is your life? Or were they like, get out of here? We understand.
Yeah. I mean, because I think it wasn't our first time talking about it, they weren't surprised. They knew this was something we had, talked about and really wanted to do for a while. So the second time it was like, are you really going to do it this time? So maybe there was a little bit of, you said this before, and I don't know if you're going. And we were like, no, this time we're going. This time everything's kind of, the world is different. So we're going. And they didn't fight us. They didn't, I think they were excited. And because Alpege's family has lived on 3 different continents. So they're no strangers to travel.
Yep. You said that you pulled out of the driveway. You were driving to Mexico, or were you flying?
We drove. We sold our 2 cars that we had and bought a car, a giant Toyota Sequoia, huge SUV, because getting the dogs down was very complicated. So we had to drive. We needed a car anyway, and we kind of thought, well, this will be fun. It's another part of the adventure we hadn't really anticipated, but it all worked out.
So when you're driving away from your home for the last time and you're hit the city limits of Decatur, Georgia, and you're heading west, what are you high-fiving? Are you nervous? Like, what's going through your heads?
We were really excited. It really, this whole process has not felt difficult to us. We were so excited about being able to do what we finally wanted to do that there really wasn't any fear or sadness or hesitation at all.
And your health situation, though, could you see, like you were leaving doctors, you were leaving all the specialists that had been working on you from the beginning. What was the thought of, it's not just your comfort zone of your home and your neighborhood and your neighbors. I mean, these are healthcare professionals that have looked over you. You were leaving that too. Like, what were your thoughts around that?
I felt like I didn't have any answers, and I had seen, some of the best doctors in the field. We lived probably 1.5 miles from Emory University and Emory Hospital, and nobody had any answers for me. So I didn't feel like, I wasn't necessarily under any kind of stringent treatment. It was really just a wait and see. So I felt like I could wait and see pretty much anywhere. Mexico has excellent health care. And then we're so close, we could always go home if we needed to.
And what city were you driving to in Mexico? What city did you choose to move to first?
Our first stop was Chelem, which is right outside of Merida. It's
Why
on the
Chelem?
coast. Yeah. Well, it's a small little fishing village, and I wanted to live on the water. I wanted to be as close to the water as possible, and and still be able to kind of research Merida and look for homes, or kind of just feel it out and see if it was a place we could live.
Okay, so you get to Chilem, you show up at your rental house. Is it right on the beach?
Right on the beach.
All right, so you unpack, the dogs are running around, the kids are running around, the water is right there. What was the scene when you arrived?
Yeah, it was paradise. I mean, we had iguanas, giant iguanas on the fence, and it was right on the water, so the boys could walk out the front door and swim, and there was a pool in the backyard. It was really, really a beautiful home.
Do you speak Spanish?
Un poco. We're learning. It's a slow process. The kids are doing great. The adults are bringing up the rear.
Okay, always when it comes to that. Are you kidding? What was the first event when you were like, whoa, we're not in Atlanta anymore?
That's a good question. I think it was the first day we had crossed over the border. We were driving to San Miguel de Allende, and we started to pass these truck chassis. They weren't trucks, they were just the chassis that someone was driving, sitting on a lawn chair, wearing goggles. It was like something out of Mad Max. I mean, I was like, what in the world? Is that even legal? And yeah, I mean, apparently it is. And driving a truck chassis, sitting on a lawn chair, wearing goggles on the freeway. So that was probably our first indication that we were no longer in Atlanta.
That is not Decatur, Georgia. Not even close.
No.
All right. So you get to Chilem, and when does... So that was what, summer of 2016 or fall of 2016 when you're there?
June. The end of June.
June 2016. When does life start? Because there's a honeymoon. We're still on vacation. We're on vacation phase, honeymoon phase, all that kind of stuff. Like, when does life start with like a routine and the kids in school and unfortunately like doctor's visits and all of those things that keep a family going?
Right. Well, I mean, for us, it didn't start for a while. We didn't have to put the kids in school right away. We actually had planned to keep them out for a year. We needed to figure out where we were going to go next. And even that plan kind of started to evolve. It's interesting that once you don't have any obligations, be it school or jobs or anything, that the possibilities are endless, and they can be overwhelming.
Yeah, the flip side of that is that, oh my gosh, it's decision overload, or it's option overload. How long were you planning on staying in Chilem? Because you're in Ajijic now, which is a long way from the coast on the Yucatan. How long were you planning on staying in Chilem, and then what was your next move?
Well, initially we were going to stay in Chilem for 3 months. And during that time, we were going to look for a house in Merida. And shortly after we got to Chilem, we started to think, we're here and we have a car, and are we ready to settle back down, into a house with a lease? And the answer was no. We were like, let's go travel and see this country we had just driven across and seen snow-capped mountains. I didn't know Mexico had snow-capped mountains. I didn't, we drove past volcanoes, and I just wanted to take the kids back and go explore and see it all. So that's when our plan changed. But during those first 3 months, we decided, like, really, what would we like to do? Again, we kept going back to, what do we want to do? And now we could do anything. So we decided to travel Mexico for a year.
Travel for a year. Okay. So you've got enough money in the bank where the stress levels are down. You don't have to make money for a while. Was anything going on in regards to like starting businesses or working online or anything like that?
Not really. We were just sort of soaking it all up. What were the possibilities everywhere we went? Just kind of testing out lifestyles. We went, we were on the beach in Chilem. We went to Cozumel. Then we came inland to Ajijic. It was really about kind of seeing what worked best for us. And then we have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think eventually, once we find where we want to live, we'll find what we want to do there and what, sort of suits the community.
So you're still exploring cities. You haven't found the city that you're going to settle down in.
Not yet. Yeah, we're still exploring. We want to go down. Our plan is to eventually go all the way to Panama and explore Central America too. So
and drive it?
We'll see. That got cut short. Yeah, to drive it.
All right. So what about your health? Like, what is your situation now, and where are your doctors?
Yeah. Well, our plan was to drive down to Central America, but because I was having a hard time finding my medication here, it's actually not available in Mexico. So I had to make a medication switch. And we came back up to Ajijic in the mountains because it's cooler in the summer and it would be a good place. There's great medical care here. I have a primary care physician here. And so we kind of took a little time out to go through this medication change, which has been a slow go.
What is your eyesight now?
My eyesight's the same. It hasn't changed for my right eye. My left eye, I've had some periodic issues. I haven't lost sight, but I've had some weird variations in my sight, I guess, that happen sporadically and spontaneously. We can't seem to figure out what will be causing it. There's nothing stress or anything like that. So I get like a little episode that comes on, and then about 20 minutes, it's gone. So
has there ever been a point where you thought, wait a minute, what are we doing? Should we consider going back?
No, there hasn't been 1 second of looking backwards at all. It's been like we feel kind of at home in our own skin for the first time, feeling like we're doing what we wanted to do and sort of just living our more authentic life.
And how are the kids adapting?
The kids are great. They love it. They have explored and challenged themselves. I mean, they've been snorkeling in 50 feet of water with a barracuda the size of my youngest, Bodie, staring him down. And, they've gone, which was also a fear of mine, deep water. But, they've gone horseback riding and swam in cenotes, and it's just been the adventure of a lifetime for them.
How's their Spanish?
Their Spanish is much better than mine.
All right. So you're in Ajijic. What are your plans in the next 6 months?
That's a good question. We're working on our plans for the next 6 months. We're here until October, and depending on how I'm feeling, we'll probably head back to the coast on the Pacific coast and spend the winter there. And we'd like to get down further south in Mexico and Oaxaca and a bunch of the south part of the country that we haven't been to yet. But it's still up in the air. We don't plan very far ahead anymore.
Without this health scare, would you guys still be sitting in Decatur, Georgia right now if it weren't for that?
I don't know. I hope not. It seems like it was an easy thing to do, and we were so far into it that sort of maintaining was easier than contemplating leaving, for sure. It's a daunting process, but I know that this is something we'd always dreamt about. So I would hope that we found the ability to do it anyway.
Most of the people that I talk to on the show, they pull the ripcord on their own lives, and it's their own motivation. And then other guests that have been on, it's kind of been pulled on them, so to speak, through circumstances or health situations. What if you could, in that moment, in the examination, sitting on the examination table and sitting up and having your eyesight gone, if you could jump into that room and give yourself 1 minute of advice, what would you tell yourself?
That it's going to be okay, no matter what happened.
What about the person that is, I mean, it was pulled, okay, so that situation was pulled on you. What about the person like what you were back in 2009? Like, should we, barrier, like, what would be the first step for that person that thinks, man, Ajijic Mexico sounds pretty awesome, but I don't know where to start? Because you just said it's a daunting task to just start. What would be the first steps that you would suggest they take to be able to unravel their current lives and head on a path like what you guys are on?
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a very overwhelming problem to tackle. It's, you have to start, though, I would say, with visas. You have to make sure that wherever you want to go want to let you have, to be there for whatever period of time you're considering. And for us, that meant getting a temporary or permanent resident visa. So I would recommend starting there. And for us, once we got approval from Mexico, it was really about dealing with our stuff, the houses and cars and just stuff in the house. Could we bring the pets? What about school? There was a lot of research.
Yep. And all the stuff you have now, it all fits in your car?
It does, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, the boys know if they buy something has to go. Everything has to fit in the car. So that's how we do it right now.
One thing in and one thing out. That's a pretty great way to live, though.
It really is. There's nothing to maintain, aside from the car. There's just nothing to manage. And we felt like we were managing so many things that we just didn't feel like they weren't a priority in our lives, and we were letting them be.
You can follow Alpesh and Cree on their website, which Alpesh is a great writer. There are awesome articles up there, and certainly like takeaway things in regards to if you want to go to Mexico. It's at nomad-ish.com, and it's an incredible logo. And on Facebook, Nomadish4. Are there any nonprofits that you would like listeners to donate to?
There is a local charity in Ajijic that is called Poco a Poco.
Okay.
And I do not have the web address, but I can get that for you.
And I will get that in show notes. Perfect. All right. Cree, that is all I've got for you today. And thank you very much for joining me today and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me.
This Pulling the Ripcord segment started with Bob and Farah Grimm emailing me about how much they like the podcast and that they've been using it as encouragement to fuel their launch into the next phase of their lives. They just quit the cubicle life in Portland and plan on traveling the world on savings, and they've calculated that they're going to be able to live on about $100 a day. Check out this simple mindset shift that helped them get to this point of launching.
So this $100 a day actually kind of became a mantra. So whenever there was something that we wanted to spend money on, or if we noticed a part of our typical budget that was getting to be a little too expensive, or if we wanted to justify dropping cable or something like that, we would put everything in terms of days of travel. So, if you wanted to buy a new outfit, well, that's a day of travel right there. And, is it worth a day of travel for me to have that new outfit? And a lot of times the answer was no. And it became easier and easier as time went on.
And as a reminder of why they are doing it and what they are pursuing, Farah put it perfectly.
Right now, our focus is to find ourselves. So that we can relay that into finding our next career or income stream. We want to have jobs in the second chapter that we absolutely love.
We agreed that in 6 months, we're going to check back in with them for a full episode to see how their lives are working out. Until then, you can follow them on Facebook at Can Do Latitude. How cool is that? If you have your own story, please email me at tnevins@clickplacement.com. I definitely want to hear your story. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit up the rock stars at printdirtcheap.com. Use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. For fast, cheap, and high-quality online printing, it's printdirtcheap.com. Hey, Life Hunters, thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at gohuntlife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.